Clapperboard title: The Treasure of the Three Brothers, A Tale of Wonder and Destiny. Once upon a time, in small village nestled between whispering hills and golden meadows, there lived a humble tailor who had 3 sons. Each son had a name, of course, but no one ever used them. Instead, everyone in the village knew them by their nicknames: Longshanks, Fatty, and Foolish. Now, Longshanks was a carpenter, tall, clever, and quick with his hands. Fatty was a miller, cheerful and round as one of his flour sacks. Foolish, the youngest, was a turner, dreamy and kind, forever losing himself in his thoughts and wood shavings. For years they lived quietly, their days passing like the steady ticking of a clock. But one morning, Longshanks grew restless. He looked around at the same little streets, the same faces, the same slow rhythm of the village, and sighed. "I can't stay here any longer," he said to his brothers. "I want to see the world and seek my fortune." And so, he packed his tools into a worn leather bag, tucked a few coins into his purse, and set off down the road, with the morning sun lighting his path. He walked and walked, through valleys and over hills, through forests where the trees whispered secrets of old, until one day he found his purse empty. No coins, no food, no work. Only the long road ahead and the rumble of his hungry stomach. As he sat beneath a tree, lost in gloomy thoughts, an old man appeared from behind the bend in the road. "Young man," said the stranger, his voice soft and wise, "why such a sorrowful face? What trouble weighs upon you?" "I have no money and no work," replied Longshanks, "and I don't know how I'll eat tomorrow." "Ah," said the old man with a twinkle in his eye. "Then come with me, I have just the thing for you." And so the old man led him along a narrow path that wound through the woods until they reached a small, charming cottage, hidden like a secret among tall green fir trees. The air smelled of pine and bread, and 2 mighty firs stood at the doorway, like silent guards of emerald. Inside, the man's wife greeted them kindly and set an extra plate at the table. Together they dined, and for the first time in weeks, Longshanks laughed and felt at peace. When the meal was over, the old man said, "If you wish, you may stay with us. My furniture is old and weary, fix it for me, and I shall pay you well." And so Longshanks stayed. Days turned to weeks, and weeks into months. The old couple treated him as a son. The work was light, the meals delicious, and the house full of warmth and laughter. But one day, the old man came to him and said, "My boy, I have no more work for you, and my purse is empty. Yet I would not let you go with nothing. I shall give you something far greater than gold or silver." He opened a tall wooden cupboard, and from within he drew a small, polished table, plain yet gleaming with quiet magic. "This," said the old man, "is a magic table. When you say the words 'table,' set yourself, it will spread a feast fit for a king before your very eyes. Guard it well, and remember me." And with a kind smile, he placed the little table in Longshanks' hands. Though Longshanks' heart ached to leave the cozy little house in the woods, he was filled with joy and gratitude for the marvelous gift he had received. After walking no more than 100 steps down the forest path, curiosity got the better of him. He set the little table on the ground and said clearly, "Table, set yourself." And at once, oh, what a wonder, the polished wood shimmered, and before his eyes appeared a silk tablecloth of rose and gold embroidery. Upon it lay loaves of bread still warm from the oven, silver platters of steaming roasts and savory stews, fruits from every season glistening like jewels, and a crystal flask filled with old, fragrant wine. Longshanks feasted like a prince beneath the trees, drank his fill, and laughed aloud with delight. When he was done, he folded the table, slung it over his shoulder, and continued on his way, whistling happily as the birds joined in his tune. Day after day he traveled, never hungry, never weary, for wherever he stopped, his magic table gave him all he could wish for. At last, after many miles, he reached a village not far from his own. There he stopped at a modest inn and said to the innkeeper, "Good sir, I must rest for a while. Take care of my table, it is very dear to me." The innkeeper nodded politely, but his eyes glinted with curiosity. That evening, Longshanks went to his room and asked for nothing but his table. The innkeeper, suspecting something strange, crept up the stairs and peered through the keyhole. And what he saw nearly took his breath away, for the young man placed his hands upon the table and said, "Table, set yourself." And lo! In a blink, the table bloomed with gold and silver dishes, glittering food, and fine wine fit for a king. The greedy innkeeper whispered to himself, "That table would make me the richest man in all the land. I must have it." When the night grew deep and silent, he tiptoed into Longshanks' room and replaced the magic table with another, identical in every detail, yet completely ordinary. The next morning, Longshanks, blissfully unaware of the trick, thanked his host, took the false table on his back, and continued home. When he arrived, his father and brothers ran to greet him. "I've made my fortune," he declared proudly. "Invite all our family and friends to a feast, I shall provide the meal myself." His father frowned in disbelief. "A feast for so many? That will cost a fortune." "Leave that to me," said Longshanks with a confident smile. "Just bring the guests, and come hungry." Soon the house was full of people, neighbors, cousins, and curious villagers. Longshanks placed the table in the center of the room and announced, "Watch closely. This is no ordinary table. Whatever dish your heart desires, it will appear before you." Everyone leaned in eagerly as Longshanks raised his hands and cried, "Table, set yourself." But nothing happened. The table stood still, bare and silent. He tried again, louder this time, then softly, pleadingly, but the table remained as lifeless as a stone. Whispers turned to laughter. The guests chuckled, the cousins snickered, and one by one, they drifted away shaking their heads. Longshanks' pride melted into embarrassment. His great fortune had turned to dust. And so, humbled and heavy-hearted, he went back to his carpentry, dreaming bitterly of the day he had lost his magic table. Some time later, the second brother, Fatty, the cheerful miller, decided that it was his turn to seek his fortune. He packed his tools into a small bag, kissed his parents goodbye, and set off down the same winding road his brother had taken before him. He walked and walked, through fields of silver dew, over streams that sparkled like glass, until, as always, the last of his coins were gone. Hungry and weary, he wandered into the same deep forest, and who should he meet but the very same kindly old man. The old man welcomed him warmly and led him once more to the little cottage surrounded by whispering fir trees. The woman of the house smiled, set the table, and soon Fatty found himself well fed, well rested, and in good company. He stayed there for many months, helping in the mill and keeping the old couple supplied with flour and bread. One morning, the old man came to him and said gently, "My good boy, I have no more work to give you, nor money to pay you, but I will give you something far better." He led him outside to the stable and pointed to a small, unremarkable donkey. "This little fellow looks like any other beast," he said with a wink, "but he holds a secret. Whenever you say, 'Donkey, sneeze,' he will shower you with gold coins." "Gold coins?" cried Fatty, his round face lighting up with joy. "Hooray! That's better than 100 mils." He thanked the old man and his wife with all his heart, and before leaving the forest, he couldn't resist trying the magic himself. He spread his cloak beneath the donkey's nose and commanded, "Donkey, sneeze." At once, achoo! The little beast sneezed a glittering shower of gold coins that rang like tiny bells as they hit the ground. Fatty laughed so hard he nearly cried. He gathered up the treasure and set off proudly, jingling as he went. He traveled like a lord, eating well, sleeping in the finest inns, buying whatever his heart desired. But as the bag of gold grew lighter, he came upon a familiar inn, the very same where his brother Longshanks had once stayed. He decided to spend the night. When morning came and it was time to pay, he told the innkeeper, "I'll fetch the money from the stable." The innkeeper frowned. From the stable? That was unusual. Curious, and greedy by nature, he tiptoed after Fatty and peered through a crack in the door. There, before his very eyes, Fatty laid a cloth beneath the donkey's nose and said proudly, "Donkey, sneeze." And achoo. Out rained a glorious pile of gold coins, clinking and gleaming in the morning light. The innkeeper gasped. "That donkey must be mine," he whispered. That night, while the miller slept soundly, the cunning innkeeper crept into the stable and swapped the magic donkey for one that looked exactly the same. At dawn, Fatty rose, thanked the man politely, and rode off with the false donkey, never suspecting a thing. When he reached home, his family rushed to greet him. "I've done it," he cried. "I've made my fortune. Let's celebrate, or invite everyone you know to a grand feast." His father raised an eyebrow. "A feast for all our friends and neighbors? That will cost a fortune." "Leave that to me," said Fatty with a grin. "I'll pay for everything." The next day, the house was filled with laughter and the smell of roasted meat. The tables groaned under fine dishes, the guests ate and drank to their heart's content, and the poor tailor, the father, worried about how such a feast would ever be paid for. At last, when the laughter had quieted, Fatty led his donkey into the hall and spread a clean white cloth beneath its nose. "Now," he announced proudly, "I'll show you my secret. This donkey sneezes gold coins for everyone." The guests leaned in eagerly. Fatty raised his hands and said, "Donkey, sneeze." The donkey blinked. Nothing. He tried again, louder this time. "Donkey, sneeze." The animal only flicked its tail. Fatty tried coaxing, pleading, even shouting, but all he got in return was a long, pitiful bray that echoed through the room. The guests burst out laughing. The hall rang with their mirth as Fatty's cheeks turned crimson. In the end, everyone left still laughing, and the poor miller was left with nothing but debt, embarrassment, and a very ordinary donkey. So once again, another brother returned to his work, a little wiser, a little sadder, and the magic seemed lost forever. Now, the youngest brother, Foolish, as everyone called him, was a quiet soul. He spoke little, thought much, and though the villagers believed him simple-minded, his eyes were filled with quiet curiosity and wonder. One evening, as he listened to his brother's stories, both of their strange adventures and their ridiculous misfortunes, he murmured to himself, "It's strange that they both met the same old man, and both lost their treasures in the same place. I must see for myself what truly happened." So he packed his modest tools into a small bag, bowed to his parents for their blessing, and set off down the same winding road. He, too, came to the dark green forest. He, too, met the little old man, who greeted him kindly and welcomed him into his cottage among the fir trees. For months, Foolish worked as a turner, shaping wood into smooth, perfect forms. The old man and his wife treated him like family, and their days passed in peace. At last, the day came when the old man said, "My boy, I'm afraid I can no longer keep you here. I have no more work for you, and no money to pay." Foolish smiled and bowed. "You have fed me, sheltered me, and treated me kindly, that is more than enough." But the old man raised a finger. "Ah, wait. I have given your brothers the finest things I owned, and now only this remains." He brought forth an old sack, tied with a bit of string. "Inside is a staff," he explained. "It may not seem much, but when you say the words 'staff' out of the sack, it will leap forth and defend you better than 100 guardsmen. It will fight until you command it, staff, back in the sack. Perhaps your fortune lies in this, my boy." Foolish thanked him with deep gratitude, slung the sack over his shoulder, and began the journey home. Along the way, he used the staff only to shoo away the occasional barking dog. But soon he came upon a familiar inn, the very same one where his brothers had been deceived. The innkeeper's eyes gleamed with curiosity as he saw the young man and his sack. Foolish, noticing the greedy glint, said calmly, "Take care of this sack for me. But whatever you do, never say, 'staff,' out of the sack. For if you do, you'll regret it dearly." The innkeeper, of course, could not resist. The moment Foolish turned his back, he whispered the forbidden words, "Staff, out of the sack." Instantly, swish. The staff sprang out and began to thrash him soundly. It struck his back, his legs, his head, thump, 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 until he looked like a drum at a festival. The innkeeper yelped, ran in circles, and cried for mercy. Foolish burst into the room, arms crossed, smiling knowingly. "I thought so," he said. "You wanted my sack, just as you stole my brother's table and donkey. Well, the staff will keep beating until you return everything you took." The innkeeper tried to protest, but every word was interrupted by another whack. Finally, bruised and desperate, he shouted, "Stop! Stop! I'll give it all back, the table, the donkey, everything. Just call it off before I'm ruined." "Staff, back in the sack," commanded Foolish. At once, the staff obeyed, slipping neatly into the bag as though nothing had happened. The trembling innkeeper quickly fetched the magic table and the golden sneezing donkey, bowing and babbling apologies. Foolish, now grinning from ear to ear, thanked him politely and returned home, his treasures safe at last. When he arrived, he asked his family to invite everyone, friends, neighbors, and even those who had mocked him most, to a grand celebration. The guests came, whispering to each other, certain they were in for another laugh at the fool's expense. But this time, their laughter turned to awe. Before their eyes, the little table shimmered and filled itself with a royal feast. The donkey sneezed showers of gold coins that glittered like sunlight. And from the sack, the staff leapt forth and danced merrily in the air, tapping gently on the shoulders of those who had laughed the loudest. But Foolish only laughed with them. "Enough, my friend," he said kindly. "Dance the tarantella, and let's keep our feast in peace." And so the staff danced, spinning, and leaping like a musician's baton while everyone feasted, drank, and laughed until the stars filled the sky. When the night was over, every guest went home with a small bag of gold, smiling, grateful, and never again daring to call the youngest brother a fool. For he had proven that wisdom often hides beneath silence, and that kindness, when paired with courage, is the greatest treasure of all.